So she could already draw and she could already paint, but she learnt to transfer her artworks onto lithographic stones and have them printed in that way. So she really learned on the job.
That process of transferring the vibrance of a bird and the beauty and intensity of the colour onto plates, what did you have to learn to write about that in your book? Like, just how complicated a process is it?
Yes, it's quite complicated. So the Goulds were involved with a man called Hunmandel. He was their printer, but he was also an artist, and he was the first person to suggest, I suppose, that lithography could be used in an aesthetic sense, because it had been around for about 60 years.
Now, what is lithography?
Lithography is a printmaking technology, so it uses a slab of limestone, and a drawing of what is to be reproduced is put onto the limestone, and then it's put into the presses and reproduced, so you can get 100 copies of that. And so it's a monochrome image. And then with the Goulds who coloured it, and then it was hand-coloured by a group of colourists, so that they were hand-coloured plates.
And so you describe this imagined woman, this artist, having to think about how she could capture these colours. And so she's having to experiment with pigments, put sugar and water washes over things, grind in bits of copper. So it's not just about grabbing your set of paints, is it? I mean, it's much more both sort of scientific and imaginative at the same time.
Yes, and I think that's something that really drew me to the process, because it was this time in history and culture where there wasn't so much of a separation between the aesthetic and the scientific. So she had two things to achieve. She had to reproduce a scientifically accurate depiction of the species, and they really wanted to make it very beautiful. So if you have a look at Elizabeth's lithographs, her technique improved very, very quickly after their first publication, and she continually experimented with new innovations. So they would use egg white, for example, and whip it up, and I think they added a bit of sugar to it, and then they painted this lovely gloss where they needed that on the feathers. Or they used a metallic powder and sprinkled that over the top of the painting, for example, with the beautiful resplendent Quetzal plate.